As the world's most populous nation, China has long been known for its massive population. However, in recent years, the country has been facing a surprising challenge: a shrinking population. With a declining birth rate, an aging population, and a shrinking workforce, China is grappling with a demographic dilemma that has far-reaching implications for its economy, society, and global power. In this video, we'll explore the shocking truth behind China's demographic shift, the factors driving it, and the potential consequences of this trend. From the one-child policy to changing social norms, we'll take a deep dive into this complex issue and shed light on one of the most significant challenges facing China today. China's long-standing position as the world's most populous country is now being challenged by India, as its population experienced a decline for the first time in decades, dropping to 1.411 billion in 2022 from the previous year, according to the National Bureau of Statistics. The drop can be attributed to a variety of factors, including the historical impact of the one-child policy, evolving attitudes towards marriage and family among the younger generation, gender inequality, and the high costs of raising children in China's cities. This trend could have far-reaching consequences for the global economy, as China has been a key driver of growth as the world's second-largest economy. A dwindling population could further exacerbate China's issues with an aging workforce and hinder its recovery from the pandemic, posing a challenge for the rest of the world. Why is this happening? The recently announced population decline in China is not only a statistical figure, but also a poignant reminder of the devastating effects of China's one-child policy. This policy, in force for over 35 years, imposed strict limits on couples, often with cruel consequences, such as forced abortions, hefty fines, and even eviction. The government's efforts to address the falling birth rate, including the lifting of the one-child policy and financial incentives, have failed to make a significant impact due to the country's high living and education costs, exorbitant property prices, and unequal gender roles that continue to plague society. Despite recent measures such as paternity leave and childcare services, women still bear the brunt of housework and childcare responsibilities, with many facing discrimination at work. The pandemic has only exacerbated these issues, with younger generations disillusioned by China's zero-COVID policy, which has caused widespread disruption to their lives and well-being. One-child policy. Undeniably, the one-child policy implemented by the Chinese government represents a substantial contributing factor to the present predicament. This government initiative aimed to control the country's population growth by limiting families to only one child. The policy was introduced in 1979 and remained in effect until 2015, when it was replaced by a two-child policy. The policy had a significant impact on Chinese families, particularly in rural areas where having a male heir was highly valued. Many families resorted to illegal measures, such as paying fines or hiding additional children, to circumvent the policy. Some families also opted to abort female fetuses, leading to a significant gender imbalance in the population. The one-child policy contributed to the current population decline in China by reducing the number of children born each year. This, coupled with a declining birth rate, has led to an aging population and a shortage of workers in certain industries. On the economic front, the one-child policy has had both positive and negative impacts. On the flip side, it helped to control population growth and reduce the strain on China's resources. Also, the policy has resulted in a shrinking workforce and an increase in the number of elderly citizens who require support. The one-child policy also had social implications, including a significant impact on gender roles and family dynamics. With only one child to support, parents placed a great deal of pressure on their child to succeed academically and financially, leading to high levels of stress and anxiety among young people. Gender imbalance. The effect of the one-child policy doesn't end there. The gender imbalance in China, resulting from the combination of the one-child policy and cultural preference for male children, has had significant and far-reaching impacts on society and contributed to population decline. The gender imbalance has created a significant shortage of women in the country, with some estimates suggesting that there may be as many as 30 million more men than women. This has led to various social problems, such as a rise in the trafficking of women for marriage, prostitution, and even forced labor. Additionally, this has led to a significant increase in the number of unmarried men, which has caused social problems such as loneliness, depression, and social isolation. Moreover, the scenario has contributed to a decline in the birth rate in China. As fewer women are available for marriage, there are fewer opportunities for couples to have children, resulting in a decline in the birth rate. This has led to concerns about the sustainability of China's population and its future economic development. Furthermore, it created a shift in gender norms and expectations. With fewer women available for marriage, men have had to adapt to new societal expectations, including taking on more domestic responsibilities, improving their education and job prospects, and being more financially stable. This shift in gender roles has had both positive and negative impacts on society, including increased gender equality, but also increased pressure on men to conform to traditional gender norms. Aging population. Due to a diminishing birth rate and a relatively scant proportion of young individuals, the populace is naturally skewed toward an age demographic with significant implications for various aspects of society, including social services, healthcare, the workforce. Some of the implications of this trend are the strain on social services. The aging population will require more social services such as pensions, healthcare, and long-term care. As a result, the demand for these services will increase, and the government will face challenges in providing them. This strain on social services will put pressure on the government to increase spending and develop new policies to support the elderly population. Healthcare challenges. The aging population is likely to experience a higher incidence of chronic diseases, such as cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, and cancer. The demand for healthcare services and resources will increase, and there may be a shortage of healthcare professionals, especially in rural areas. This shortage could lead to longer wait times, higher healthcare costs, and lower quality of care. Reduction in the workforce. The aging population will result in a reduction in the number of people in the workforce. This trend will have implications for economic growth, as a smaller workforce will lead to lower productivity and fewer taxpayers to support social services. It may also lead to labor shortages in certain sectors, such as healthcare, as fewer young people enter the workforce. Impact on the economy. The aging population could lead to a reduction in economic growth as productivity decreases and consumption patterns change. As the number of elderly people increases, their demand for goods and services may shift towards healthcare, long-term care, and leisure activities. This shift could lead to a decline in demand for goods and services that cater to young people, such as education, housing, and technology. Migration. China's urbanization has been one of the most significant demographic changes in recent decades. As more and more people migrate from rural areas to cities in search of better job opportunities and a higher standard of living, the population in rural areas has declined sharply. There are several reasons for this trend and its impact on China's population. Firstly, the movement of people from rural areas to cities has led to a decline in the number of people engaged in agriculture and other traditional rural activities. This shift has resulted in a significant decrease in the rural population, as more and more people move to cities in search of jobs in manufacturing, construction, and services. Secondly, as the population in rural areas continues to decline, there is a growing concern about the demographic imbalance between urban and rural areas. The decline in the rural population is particularly acute in China, where the government's one-child policy has contributed to a significant decline in the birth rate. This trend has led to an aging rural population, which further exacerbates the demographic imbalance between urban and rural areas. Finally, the migration from rural areas to cities has also led to significant environmental challenges. Rural areas have traditionally been the main source of food, water, and other natural resources for China's population. However, as more and more people move to cities, there is an increasing demand for resources, which has put a strain on China's already stretched environmental resources. What does this mean for China and the world? Now, this is where it takes a more serious turn. China's shrinking population adds to the demographic problems the country is already facing, with its aging population and shrinking workforce. The strain on the younger generation is expected to intensify as the elderly now make up nearly a fifth of China's population. Experts warn that China could follow Japan's path of economic stagnation, which coincides with its aging demographics. With the supply of workers shrinking, productivity growth will need to increase to sustain the economy's pace of expansion. China's economy is already struggling with a 3 expansion in 2022, thanks to COVID lockdowns and a downturn in the property market. The shrinking workforce could further complicate the recovery as China relaxes travel restrictions and resumes its pre-pandemic pace. If we look at the bigger picture, China's challenges could have far-reaching implications for the global economy as well, with the pandemic highlighting how domestic problems can disrupt supply chains and trade. Slowing growth could also threaten China's ambition to overtake the U.S. as the world's largest economy. While India is set to overtake China as the most populous nation, concerns remain over whether it can create enough jobs for its expanding workforce. Nevertheless, some researchers suggest a smaller population could benefit the environment in the fight against climate change. The shrinking population will also strain China's social security system, with fewer workers to fund services like pensions and healthcare for the aging population. The demand for elder care will increase as fewer people are available to care for the elderly. Naturally, China has been encouraging larger families through tax deductions, improved maternity leave, and other perks. Chinese leader Xi Jinping pledged to improve the population development strategy and ease economic pressure on families. Some places are even offering cash incentives for more births, but many experts and residents say more sweeping national reforms are needed. The once populous nation is now struggling with a lack of population. What a joke. After this news broke, a hashtag went viral on Weibo. To encourage childbirth, you must first solve the worries of young people. Our salaries are so low, while rent is so high, and financial pressure is so heavy. My future husband will work overtime until 3 a.m. One Weibo user wrote, "My survival and health are already problems, let alone having children. Should China be worried about it?" Paul Chung, Singapore's former chief statistician, has suggested that China has plenty of manpower and a lot of lead time to manage this demographic challenge. The most crucial takeaway from this situation is that China's demographic stress will impact its economy at lower levels of income, and its primary pension fund will likely be depleted by 2035 due to a shrinking workforce. Studies by the U.S. think Tank Pew Research have shown that as early as 2016, roughly 7 in 10 Chinese people already felt that the public health system was under strain. As such, China's declining population could have significant global economic ramifications, including increased labor costs, rising production and consumption costs, and the potential outsourcing of manufacturing operations to other developing nations in Asia and South America. China may need to consider alternative approaches to maintaining economic growth, such as national legislation to raise the retirement age. Currently, the retirement age for most men in China is 60, which is below the OECD average of 64.2. However, past proposals to raise the retirement age have sparked a backlash in China, with older workers unwilling to defer access to their pensions. China is already pursuing automation through robotics and artificial intelligence, but it remains unclear how much of an impact this will have on productivity. Another option could be to boost the population through immigration, but historically, this has not been a preferred strategy for the Chinese Communist Party. Some experts suggest that a more stable world population may be preferable, which could involve declines in some countries. Ultimately, the key is for nations to focus on coping mechanisms to address demographic challenges. Government policies. After an era of strict one-child and two-child policies, the Chinese government recently announced that couples can now have up to 3 children as part of efforts to address the population decline. However, it remains to be seen whether this policy will have the desired impact. One potential impact of the policy is that it could lead to an increase in births, which would help to address the demographic challenges that China is facing. However, it is unclear whether this will happen, as there are a number of factors that could affect birth rates. First, many young couples in China are choosing to delay marriage and parenthood due to factors such as high living costs, long working hours, and a desire for greater freedom and independence. This trend is likely to continue, which could limit the impact of the policy. Second, the cost of raising children in China is high, particularly in urban areas where many young people live. Even with the relaxation of the one-child policy, many families may choose to have only 1 or 2 children, as they cannot afford to have more. Third, we've already talked about it. The gender imbalance in China, caused by the one-child policy and a cultural preference for male children, has led to a shortage of women of childbearing age. While the Chinese government's policy to allow couples to have up to 3 children is a step in the right direction, it is unlikely to reverse the population decline on its own. To do so, the government will need to address the underlying factors that are contributing to the decline in birth rates, such as high living costs, long working hours, and a cultural preference for small families. Additionally, the government may need to consider providing financial incentives or other support to encourage young couples to have more children. To combat the issue of a shrinking population, China could implement a 3-pronged approach. Firstly, offer incentives for couples to have more children, such as tax breaks or maternity leave benefits. Secondly, encourage immigration to offset the aging population and declining workforce. Finally, improve the social welfare system to support the elderly and mitigate rising healthcare costs. However, these solutions face cultural and social barriers and may take time to see the desired effects. Solving this challenge requires comprehensive and sustained efforts, but it is critical for China's sustainable development and global influence. What do you think about China's shrinking population? Do you have any ideas for solutions that were not discussed in this video? We encourage you to share your thoughts and opinions on this topic in the comments section below. Remember to subscribe to our channel for more informative videos and to stay up to date on the latest news and trends. Thanks for watching, and see you soon in our next video.